Scumbags, welcome back to another episode of the GA Scumbags. We've got a very, very special Mother's Day treat for you guys here today. None other than former Duke football player and quarterback and current social media influencer Quentin Harris joining us on the pod today. Quentin, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Happy to hop on with you guys and chop it up a little bit.
So, as many of you guys probably know, I figured most people who listen to this pod are diehard Duke football fans, so they'll remember Quentin. But Quentin, you were there, let's see, 2015 through 2019, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool, cool, cool. I guess after football, like, what are you up to these days? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so now it's kind of a long story, but essentially, I played the 5 years on the football team there from 15 through 19, and basically after I finished my fifth year starting, I was kind of in a little bit of flux. I was going to give the NFL a shot, at least go through rookie minicamp, see what kind of transpired from that. But of course, that's also when COVID hit. So all those things, I was a fringe prospect, nothing like, DJ, for example, that's a first round pick. So, all of those rookie minicamps, those things got canceled. So I was already going to Fuqua for one master's degree, and they had a new program called the Accelerated MBA that essentially, if you had done that previous master's degree, you can jump right to the second year of your MBA. So basically, what I decided then was to go back to school, Fuqua for another year, and finish and get my MBA. So I basically did my undergrad right into my MBA. And then after that, I started working in finance for a couple of years. It was internal corporate finance. I kind of, it was okay. It wasn't the most exciting work. Definitely didn't feel like it capitalized on my social skills or I didn't feel like I had much interaction with people in that role. So made the switch. I'm actually still at the same company, but I work as a reinsurance broker now. And I know that's like another layer of insurance, and insurance is already a complicated industry. But essentially, it's insurance for insurance companies. I am a broker that kind of exists between that. So, your Nationwides, your Liberty Mutuals, they all write these policies for everybody. We kind of represent them in the market and help them purchase reinsurance. So that is technically my main job, but I'm sure the more exciting piece that maybe you guys want to know about is the social media aspect of it. And, long story short, that essentially started, I was a brand ambassador for a company, Cuts Clothing. And in order to kind of get the free product every month and stay in the program, you had to post, twice a month or something like that on your Instagram. And, at the
Yeah.
time, I probably had a few thousand followers from football. I think I did end up getting like, verified on that, which definitely probably helped, my case of getting into the program. But basically got in the habit of posting, and then eventually it just evolved. That like anything, you get better at it. And now I've been able to kind of amass a following on both TikTok and Instagram. That's into the hundreds of thousands. So that's been pretty exciting. It's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun too. So I definitely enjoy doing that as well.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
it's awesome. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. Just speaking on the TikTok thing, I thought it was about a month or so ago. We have a little Duke football TikTok group chat too, which is just where we send videos back and forth. And one of your videos had popped up. You were in some like old school vintage Duke gear, and we'd all commented, Duke legend Quentin Harris. Just how like cool it was to see somebody, a couple years later, post removed from Duke football, just kind of doing their own thing, still repping some of the cool vintage gear, and just was awesome to see, and to see the following, the amount of views, the amount of people that interact with your feeds and things like that. It's really cool and just super awesome to see.
Yeah, no, it's been really exciting. I mean, it's really crazy. It definitely happened pretty quickly. One minute you're getting excited about, 10 likes on anything, like anything, and then, eventually it just you have a couple of videos blow up, and then, the growth really can be kind of just, astronomical. So it's been fun. But I love all the vintage Duke pieces I've been able to get. That pullover was actually from a brand deal I did with Home Field Apparel and like College Vault, I think
Yeah.
is the
Oh,
real name of it.
absolutely.
Yeah, but they have a lot of awesome vintage Duke gear. I got a couple other hats and shirts from them too. So glad to see that places have that kind of stuff. And low key, places like eBay, Depop, I found a lot of cool
Oh
pieces
yeah.
on there too.
Oh
With
yeah.
vintage kind of Blue Devil and a lot of the cool logos from like the 80s and 90s.
It's
For
funny you say
sure.
that, Quentin, because I've got that exact Duke pullover with we call it the classic script. That was
Yeah.
my go-to for like the fall games. I was so pissed. I was wearing it at the Virginia Tech game tailgate this year, and like a little ash from the fire like flew and got on it and burnt a
Man.
hole in it. I was so pissed. But speaking of eBay, I do live on eBay looking for old school Duke football stuff, and I thought you'd appreciate this. I scored Walk-On's Independence Bowl team issued polo. I don't know if you can
Oh, there
see
you
that.
go.
Where's the
Yeah,
logo at? Yeah, you see
there we
that?
go. Yep, I recognize it. I think I've got mine in the closet.
Yeah, I went back and I watched the highlights from that game this morning, and well,
Cinema.
talk about TJ ramming legacy game, man. What was it like 12 receptions, like 200 plus yards and three TDs or something like that?
Something crazy, man. I mean, that was a great way to send, basically, I guess that would have been my class out, with guys like Ben, DJ, TJ. I mean, they all had great games that game. So that was a fun one. I mean, it it wasn't the most exciting location, but
Shreveport.
I was there with my grandmother. I tell you what, when you're I guess at the time I would have been 15. Yeah, not a place where you're just like real amped to go for Christmas and everything. But
definitely
man,
not.
what a good ass kicking to give Temple down there for
It
sure.
was good. It was good for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I feel like I always tell people the bowl game locations kind of went downhill for me. So when I first got there, it was New York, and like, I was 18. You can't really do anything, and I was also deathly afraid of like, not being in my room at curfew or something like that. Whereas, the seniors, they're like, or juniors even, they're like, who cares? Like we're
Yeah,
starters on the
freshman
team. Like we
stuff.
have we
Yeah.
have some, cachet built up. And so, it's funny. Me and Daniel, I think, stayed in, but I know some other guys went out. But yeah, went there. Detroit was actually pretty fun. I actually turned 21 on that trip, which was cool. So we had a cool little celebration at a place that was like a bowling alley, arcade, bar
Oh, that's
type
sick.
thing. And then yeah, Shreveport to kind of ended up. And I still think we probably should have made a bowl my last year, but I had a couple of close losses. But
Yeah, it's that's always heartbreaking. Like it's like the 2022 Duke season. I don't know how close you keep up with the program these days, but like they had four losses in 2022 and like they lost all of them by a combined like 20 points.
yeah,
Just brutal.
the classic kind of Duke losses. Yeah,
You were talking
That's
about
so Duke. That's what we call it.
yeah.
yeah. Tyler, our co-host, just joined on a little bit late. Tyler, what's going on, man?
He might be having some technical difficulties if he's on the road. But
Yeah.
Tyler was doing Mother's Day brunch this morning, so shout out to Tyler being a good scumbag. But yeah, to kind of get into some of like the Duke stuff and the football stuff, Quentin, kind of if you don't mind talking about your recruitment, and one thing here we're huge just college football junkies in general. So even outside of Duke, some of the teams that contacted you, visit you took, things like that.
hmm Yeah, definitely. So I feel like I was pretty lucky, and it honestly happened in a way that I didn't necessarily anticipate it. So, a little bit of background. I've had, a couple of first cousins play college football at Miami, Ohio, and University of Miami, whichever, I think that's how it is. Yeah, that's how the delineation is. Had a couple of first cousins play. They're a few years older. So, and my dad also played college football at the University of Georgia. He was a receiver and DB, played kind of in that Herschel Walker, Vince Dooley era. So, he was playing some big level games back then. Like
That's
That's
sick.
sick.
his
Yeah, that's insane.
yeah, one of their, I think it was either it might have been a championship game or at least some bowl back then, but it was against Penn State that kind of always comes on or used to come on ESPN Classic. And I remember he used to always tell me that story about, I think Herschel Walker. I mean, the offense ran through him, but he had like hurt I think his like thumbnail came off or something where he couldn't grip the football. So they ended up having to throw a lot that game. And I think he said he had like 10 catches that game or something like that. But, anyways, had that kind of in my family. For me, I didn't quite know how my recruitment would go. I grew up in Connecticut. It's not a hotbed for athletics or football, especially. So I knew I wanted to try to do that though. So I ended up going to boarding school, Taft in Watertown, Connecticut. And, that was a more competitive league, kind of the where you would get noticed. Like one of the guys that went to a school in our league was Christian Wilkins at the time. So,
Yes.
a couple of guys here and there, but by no means are you having multiple guys on every team going, high Division One. So, my freshman year, I actually only played freshman ball there. Sophomore year, I split time kind of with a senior, but my sophomore year, I went to like a team camp at Boston College where you see a bunch of different schools at once. So you're seeing Ivies, you're seeing D3s, Boston College. And again, I was still kind of with like the younger guys, but I did really well at that camp and actually ended up coming away with an offer from Boston College. And it was kind of like, did not expect that. I was just going to a little sleepaway camp to have fun and, got that first offer. And I think that put me on the radar for a lot of the ACC schools. So the next thing I realized, Duke was reaching out and saying, hey, we don't offer quarterbacks, based off of film, but if you come to camp, do well, there's a good chance you'll get an offer. So that following summer, and I think I might be messing up by a year. So that was freshman year going into sophomore, I got the Boston College offer. The next summer, so after my sophomore year, I went to Duke, got that offer. And, that was the same Cutcliffe staff. At the time, Scotty Montgomery was the OC, and yeah, it was pretty cool. I went to the camp, got the offer, did well there. And, it was pretty much what it came down to for me. It was Duke, Boston College. I definitely entertained a couple of the Ivies like Harvard and Dartmouth. Ultimately decided that Duke was just the best of both worlds. You have the social aspect, you have beautiful campus. It's far enough away from home where I'm out of the Northeast, but it's like nothing more than a 2 hour flight or even a drive is doable, 8, 9 hours. And I really just wanted the opportunity to play for Coach Cutcliffe, especially as a quarterback. Not everybody recruited me just as a quarterback, and I definitely wanted to play quarterback. So having his pedigree, with the Manning brothers, with T. Martin, that was just very enticing. And I really did feel the love throughout the recruiting process with them. And yeah, it kind of made it a pretty easy decision. I mean, it definitely gets surreal when you're calling the other coaches and saying, "Hey, I'm not coming to your school," especially when it's a school like Harvard or Dartmouth, and you're like, I mean, man, on paper, this sounds crazy, but Duke is right up there with them and getting the chance to play in the ACC at the highest level possible. It was just too good of an opportunity for me to pass up. So that's kind of how I ended up choosing Duke.
Yeah, and that's the beauty with Duke, man. Like you were just talking about, like especially nowadays, like there was a time when like 20 years ago, like Duke was in such a dark place, like athletically with like the football program that like they had no like on-field stuff to brag about. It was all like academic stuff. Like they would put up signs at the football stadium about like highest academic whatevers. But like now, the way things are now, thanks to Cutcliffe, it's an amazing place to play when you want to seriously consider football as a future or academics or both. But yeah, I was reading on 247 about I know you visited Stanford,
Mhm.
UConn, Boston College. You got some visits from Frank Leonard at Boston College, if I'm not mistaken. But then you committed to Duke on May 23rd, 2014.
Mhm.
And it looks like your first year, you're in the same quarterback room with Thomas Sirk, Parker Boehm, and Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
That's kind of a
That's
sad
a
QB
lot of
room right
boots,
there.
it was awesome. Yeah. Sark actually hosted me on my official visit. That was a fun night. Him
Hell
and Chris
yes.
Taylor, if you remember Chris.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they
Dog
definitely. I
receiver.
I was already committed, but they helped keep me committed. So that was good. But yeah, no, the quarterback room was awesome, man. That first year, I really look back on fondly. So yeah, Daniel and I were the same class, and obviously Cirque was coming back. He was going to be the starter because he had kind of done the hybrid role with Anthony Boone, and then Parker was kind of like the direct backup. But that was a fun time, man. Parker and Cirque were great vets in the room. Scotty Moe, I really loved. Learning under him. It's definitely a transition going from high school to college. I thought I had pretty good football knowledge. I understood basic coverages and where to go with the ball in certain situations, but it's an adjustment going from that speed and that level of competition to ACC. So it was definitely a year of learning and everything. But yeah, I enjoyed that first year. I look back on it fondly.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
you
also being there for Duke's first bowl win. And I've
since
said
like
so many years,
1962 or something like
so many
that.
years.
Yeah. No, that
It's
was that was an awesome year, honestly, like all the way around. I mean, it just from my perspective, essentially, we knew Sirk and Parker were going to be, if Daniel and I gotten into the game, that was some serious issues at that point. Not that we couldn't have done well at that point, but essentially how it worked was Daniel and I would kind of rotate scout team duties depending on, the opponent's quarterback. Whoever most resembled that quarterback would kind of play scout team that week. And then the other guy would essentially just be with the offense, but really weren't getting any reps or anything like that. It was just kind of mental things. And you're just, with the offense, understanding the game plan, just learning essentially and developing. So it was a fun year to play scout team and really just let it loose and try to beat the defense, try to make Coach Knowles mad at any given point. So it was fun just to kind of go out there play football.
Yeah, looking at the stats, obviously like, you were behind several guys, so like you didn't see I don't think you saw any action really in 2015. 2016, maybe just like three total attempts. That's it.
Yeah, I
But you
think
really
it's all
started,
you.
yeah. And then in 2017, you had a few attempts, but you really started seeing action, it looks like, in 2018. And it's been a long time. Tell me about, was that more, were you being worked in as like a Brandon Connett type of figure where like, you could do like some running stuff too, like to mix things up, or was that to fill in for DJ while he was hurt? Like, tell us a little bit about 2018.
Yeah, so I guess the progression, yeah. So redshirted that first year in 15. 16, I was very firmly third on the depth chart behind, Daniel and Parker. And I think that was a pretty tough year for me because, as I mentioned, you're adjusting to college football. And even that year we were adjusting OCs because Scotty Moe left to go be the head coach at East Carolina. And, Coach Roper came in. And the way they taught the offense, even though it was the same offense, was different. With Coach Montgomery, it was more, hey, with this play, if this guy's open, throw to him. If it's not, throw to this guy. And, you had that kind of progression. Whereas Coach Roper taught it, that we're going to dictate who we're throwing to based off the coverage the defense is giving us. And that takes a while to learn if you haven't already had that experience. And I think I definitely struggled at first with that shift in how we thought about the offense from a quarterback perspective. But by the end of the time, I felt, very comfortable in it. But essentially, yeah, I spent that year kind of being the third guy, just being the scout team guy. And I want to say the next I kind of it's all blurring together. But anyways, that 18 year that you're talking about, where I ended up making a couple of starts, that year, I think it was always kind of in Coach Cut's philosophy to have a two quarterback system, maybe just to give the quarterback a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
plays off. They'd done it a lot of times before with Cirk and Boone, Connect and Boone. So, you know,
Yeah.
that was kind of, I knew I had a package of plays. And, I think that was probably what it was going to be that year. But then, of course, Daniel gets hurt with his collarbone. And then I have to make a couple of starts there. And man, those were those were pretty crazy starts. I mean, the first one was at Baylor,
Yep.
and I remember just being that was like the slowest week of my life. Just I was studying so much film, really understanding their defense, our game plan. Luckily, DJ, had his surgery. He was able to kind of help me prepare, and he traveled with the team and everything as well. So it was a crazy week. We ended up having to go out early because there was a storm passing through North Carolina. So we went on Thursday as opposed to Friday when we usually travel for away games. So it was just adding, more and more time, anticipation to the game. And, luckily didn't have the best statistical game as far as completion percentage, but hey, at least, three of the 12 passes completed went for touchdowns, one big. Defense had a great game. And that's definitely one of my favorite games, if not my most favorite game when I look back at my time at Duke.
Duke winning at Baylor was a huge deal I
Yeah.
mean, just the program in general. I mean, outside of kind of what was going on in Baylor at the time, if you just look at the grand scheme of what Baylor football is as a whole on-field product, getting a win on them on the road against a Big 12 school for where Duke was at the time, was a huge deal. Considering non-conference schedules, we had really avoided some bigger dogs, bigger fishes. And I think a lot of people back then were worried that Duke was going to start scheduling a little too tough. And, they went kind of showed that we could go beat Baylor multiple times. So that was really cool.
Yeah, no, we had a couple of big ones against them. So that was cool. And I remember that game was so hot too. I mean, that's that Texas heat. You're on turf. I remember our athletic trainer, Hap, who's been there forever. So
Hap
he's
Zarzor, legend.
yeah, exactly. Big legend. He's been there forever. And I don't know if he's still technically like with the football team. I'm sure he still goes to the games, but I think he's like, ahead of their entire athletic trainer
Yeah.
system. But I remember he asked me before warmups, and I had, done a good job hydrating throughout the week. He asked me, did I want an IV before the game? And first, I'd never really heard of that, like a preemptive IV that people get. You obviously see that happen, mid-game or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I went through warmups and I kind of went back to him and I said, yeah, let's go ahead and do that, pre-game IV. And I definitely felt better after that. But yeah, it was hot, man. It was like probably over 100, with everything factored in on the turf.
Dude, that turf on those hot summer days is no joke. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's sweltering hot. Your shoes feel like they're melting. Like it smells
Yeah.
like burning tires because of those
Yep.
rubber pellets, man. It's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you talked about the stats. I mean, you finished the day 12 of 30, 174 yards with three TDs. It looks like the box score, like you guys kind of had it in the bag in the first half, and then Baylor started kind of making a comeback, making it more of a game. You ended up winning 40-27. Deion Jackson, who's currently tearing it up for my DC Defenders in the UFL,
Mhm.
had a good day, 10 rushes for 83 yards. You were throwing passes to guys like Jonathan Lloyd, TJ Ramming, Chris Taylor, Scott Bracey, Daniel Helm. Um, it's funny. I'm a huge San Francisco 49ers fan, and we were talking about like former Duke players who spent time at San Francisco, and I think Daniel Helm was one of them.
Yeah, yeah, for a little bit out there.
But yeah, I guess later in the season, you guys end up in the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl. Talk a little bit about, I mean, I know we touched on it a little bit ago, but talk about like, Shreveport, the lead up to that bowl game, what that was like.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, you're always happy to go to a bowl game. So we were, thrilled. It was a great bowl game and everything. Location, I'd never been to Shreveport, didn't know what to expect. We were pretty much the only show in town. Like, we stayed at the convention center, and it was funny. I remember made a joke like there was probably nowhere within like a 5 block radius that had open businesses or something. So you had to walk pretty far to, get to a bar or something like that. I mean, they had like a casino and a strip club, but like aside from that, that was pretty much it. So definitely wasn't the most lavish of activities to do outside of the bowl game, but like I said, it was fun because I can't remember if Daniel had told me or not yet. I think he had that he was probably going to go to the NFL after this. So
Hmm.
knew it was kind of his last hurrah. Obviously, our seniors, you like TJ and Ben, those guys, we knew were going to be graduating. So it was really fun to be with those guys in the same spot again. Had a pretty good opponent in Temple, and yeah, thankfully, a lot of guys had great days, came out on top. It was funny though, because I remember I made a joke to Daniel throughout the whole thing because I think he'd had, some lingering injuries maybe at that point that he was kind of fighting through still to finish that season. I remember I made a joke. I said, "Hey man, like what I really need you to not do this game is go in there and like, roll an ankle or something like that because I probably haven't been as locked into this game plan as I should be. So please don't get hurt." And then what does he do? Roll his ankle like, halfway through the first quarter. Now he ended up coming back, but I went in for a few plays and I remember I threw my first pick. So honestly, I blame my first pick on DJ for that. It was a screen pass to Britton Brown. It kind of was late developing. I still kind of threw it anyway. I don't know if he tipped it up or it was a little high, whatever, but the guy caught it, ran it back for a touchdown. Um, but yeah, man, it was just good to be with everybody again. Really the last time for that group, and it was a fun time.
You still had that one play. I watched the highlights about a half hour ago just to kind of touch up. You had that one play, that trick play, classic David Cutcliffe like trick play.
Yeah,
You, what was it? You're under center. DJ's at wide receiver. You get the ball. You throw it across the field to DJ. He throws it back to you, and then you've got a wall of blockers, and you
yeah.
get what, 30-ish yards on the
It
ground,
was
something
it
like
was a
that.
pretty big game, and I was hoping to score, because I think at that point I had a rushing touchdown too. I was trying to, fill up the stat sheet that day. I guess the modern day triple double, right? Just receiving, passing, and rushing yards. But yeah, that was a cool one. We worked on that a bunch. I was just, making sure I caught the ball. But DJ did a good job selling it. Good ball. Had, I remember distinctly Christian Harris being out there in front of me. So yeah, it was a cool play. Nice little wrinkle. I pretty safe to say I think that was my only catch in Duke history there, but it was a good one.
So
For
one
sure.
thing we were kind of wanting to touch on, and it's funny because a lot of players can't say this, but the years you were there, Duke played some pretty great games, like opponent wise.
Mhm.
Whether that was on the road, neutral sites, you guys played at Clemson, played Lamar in Louisville.
Quentin
Got
knows where this one. He knows where this one is going.
and
Yep.
then last but not least, and we've got a couple of things we want to point out on that, but of course, Duke, Alabama, and the
Yep.
Chick-fil-A Bowl. Tyler's in here now. What's up, Tyler?
How's it going, fellas? Finally, just getting everything situated. Uh, Thanks for coming on. No, I'm gonna jump off of your question real quick. I know where that's going. Speaking to Alabama, before I lose service again, what was it like getting to run the triple option? Like, when did you guys find out about that? Were you guys excited about that? Because when I was watching that and we came out and ran the triple option against Bama, I was like fangirling so hard when that happened.
Yeah, yeah. I think we called it the Army package. I had a lot of experience playing Georgia Tech when Paul Johnson was there, Army as well, when and then they still run the triple option. So, that was something I think we had really put in back in the spring. Something just a new wrinkle. We had really good running backs then. We had Deion Jackson, we had Britton Brown, and Mateo Durant. So we had a really good running back room, and I think we were just trying to look for ways to get them all on the field. And obviously, I have the ability to run as well. Um, so yeah, we put that package in. I think we knew it was a possibility well, definitely was in the game plan for Alabama, and I think it was just another wrinkle that they wouldn't necessarily expect. And we had a pretty young offense, honestly, because it was basically myself, Aaron Young, Scott Bracey, and really after that, it was a lot of young guys. I know Eli Panko played a lot, Jalen Calhoun played a lot. So I think it was just a way, obviously, it's funny. I look back on it, the coaches were downplaying the talent that Alabama had at the time. And in
That team
hindsight,
was
it's
so good.
hilarious. It's hilarious. I mean, just on defense alone, and I'm a Cowboys fan, so I definitely co-signed this pick. But they had Trayvon Diggs, they had Pat Surtain, Xavier McKinney. It's like all these guys are all pros. And at the time, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's just a guy. We don't think he's that good." I'm like, everything
That's
was
insane.
50-50 ball that I had to throw up that day. And, most of the time, they were just better than us at, just pure talent standpoint. But yeah, we knew that the triple option was in there. We ran it. I think there was one pass in there that it was like a fake triple option. There was a pass to Jalen. I think it might have hit his hand or something. I can't remember exactly how it played out, but it was a cool little wrinkle. I wouldn't say that we loved running it, but it was something that they wouldn't expect. I know the coaches, I think, thought that way too.
Yeah, it was as just a football sicko, nothing we love more than seeing your team get under center in a world of not getting under center anymore. And as Duke fans, we usually get to prep all off season for Elon or NC Central or A&T, and not any knocks to those guys. We need those games. But
Mhm.
playing Bama, it was just fun to know. It's like, man, you're going down to Atlanta. You got all off season to be excited about the trip, and like I've got to say, I've never had much of a warmer welcome from fans than Alabama. They were the nicest people, and I don't know if it was sympathy or if they were just genuinely that good of people. But what a great experience to at least be like regardless of the outcome of the game, Chick-fil-A kickoff game on ESPN or on ABC, one of the two, I can't remember. But a huge deal to be a part of something like that. That not a lot of players at Duke can ever say they get to participate in. Most of their openers are Elon, of course, things like that.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool. We definitely, like you said, played a lot of cool places, saw a lot of quarterbacks that are doing great things in the NFL now. I mean, that game was Tua, and obviously all four of their receivers at the time, Najee Harris too. Mentioned Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence at Clemson. I think that was his true freshman year. That was pretty cool to see in person. I definitely saw the vision here from that game. So yeah, definitely fortunate to play in a lot of cool places, a lot of cool NFL stadiums in my time.
Yeah, I mean 20, yeah, definitely 100%. I mean it's been a long time. I'm forgetting, but from my understanding, you guys come out running that option package, and from the accounts that I've heard going back to Alabama, Saban was just like beside himself. Is that right? Is that what happened? Like he just couldn't believe it. He was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, we didn't prepare for this."
So from what I remember too, yeah, I'm not sure if it was the fact that we had the triple option out. I'm sure it definitely was a wrinkle because we had never put that on tape before. So I'm sure, and they didn't have, I don't think, besides their secondary, the best front seven that year, at least to Alabama standards, not like
Yeah.
your Deron Paynes, your Quentin Williams, all that stuff. Um, so I'm sure it was partially that, but I remember correctly, I don't think Najee Harris was playing the first half of that game. And I think that suspension or whatever it was got axed pretty quickly because our defense was doing a great job. And I can't remember who the DC was, and I'm sure it was like Matt Guerreri or something like that, and Ben Albert. But I think we had just gotten a pick or a turnover from Kobe Kwanzaa. I think he had maybe gotten a pick or something like that. And so I think, yeah, then that was probably pretty late in the first quarter. And so I'm sure he was pissed, that they turned the ball over and, we were in the red zone now. And, he's got guys probably not executing, probably because they weren't taking us as seriously as, if it was an LSU or something like that. But yeah, he was pretty irate there from what I remember.
Yeah, those are the things we as Duke football fans hold on to. We hold on to we appreciate the little things, and the little thing being Nick Saban being beside himself that Duke threw a wrinkle in there and he had to bring back Najee Harris early.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the 2019 season start off with that game against Alabama, go on to beat A&T at home, Middle Tennessee State, and
The
then
Facebook game.
yeah,
That
the
was the
Facebook
Yeah.
game.
Facebook game.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh my God. The 2010 was such like a wild time for Duke football in so many good ways, but one of the goofier ways being broadcasting a game on Facebook.
Had to
Yeah.
pay like $1.99 to stream Duke MTSU on
Oh,
Facebook
geez.
Live. That was ridiculous.
That is
Pay
crazy. Yeah.
pay-per-view non-conference Duke football.
Hmm.
Uh
It was a good win for us, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry you guys had to do that.
well, we go into week 4, September 27th. It's a Friday night. Virginia Tech, Blacksburg, Tennessee. Set the scene for us, Quinn. What was it like going into that game?
Yeah, that was my third time at Virginia Tech, just with how it fell with my 5 years, and always knew it was a great place to play. I mean, their stadium, it's not the biggest, but it's definitely the loudest because of how steep it is. So
Yeah.
legitimately, I mean, we knew it was a big game. Obviously, a conference game. There's a lot of hype building up to it. We had just come off a couple of nice wins, and it's awesome. I mean, my first time starting a game there, we weren't out there when they do the Enter Sandman, but you can just hear it. You hear the crowd, and that is truly one of the only places where I could not talk to my lineman 3 yards away because it was so loud and you're yelling. So we had, silent counts, hand signals, all the above, and it's just an awesome atmosphere. I think we felt like we matched up pretty favorably that year going into it. And, fortunately, we got off to a pretty hot start. It was a pretty rough first quarter, I think, or at least, slugfest, 0-0 type thing. Can't hear much. And then I forget exactly how we broke through. I think it was maybe one of the passes to Noah that we had just kind of seen that they jumped those bubble routes pretty frequently. And so we, had a pump in there, and you had two guys really open. Both Aaron and Noah were open. I just kind of threw it up there, laid it up there for Noah. And I think that got us rolling. I think maybe a turnover in there, got another touchdown to Noah, and then we had the trick play to Dion as well. So things just kind of kept rolling, and slowly that crowd noise fades. And I mean, that was just truly one of the most fun games. And then the second half, I come out and have a little basic zone read, and the safety gets out of position, the running back drop or tries to take the or the DN tries to take the running back on it, and I've got a little crease, and I got some straight line speed. So that was a really cool moment. I love, that's when I say, the Baylor game was my favorite. It's probably these two because that was
Yeah,
a really special one, nationally televised in Blacksburg, conference game on a Friday night. It's really the only thing people are watching. It also was my dad's birthday. They were all there for it. And I think it's even more special because after that, my dad passed not too long after. So it was
no,
really cool that he got to be there for that on his birthday. So now I have a really great memory of, not only him getting the chance to see me play and start college football, but, winning in such a big fashion against a
absolutely.
Power Five opponent. So awesome night. I honestly probably would say that's my favorite one. Baylor's a close second, but awesome night, crazy atmosphere. One I definitely continue to tell people about to this day.
And those are the ones that we talk about. Like whenever we're talking about, we've got a massive Duke football group chat on Twitter, where we just kind of rehash like memories and whatnot.
Mhm.
But when we talk about like, the 2018 and 19 seasons, those are typically like the two games we talk about. Like we always refer to the Virginia Tech game as the Quentin Harris legacy game because I mean, look at the stats. I mean, you were on point, 20 of 27. That's an
Yeah.
insane ratio. 163 passing yards, two TDs. But you also did some damage on the ground, like you said, 17 yards or 17 carries for 100 yards, one rushing TD. I
Yeah.
mean, that and Noah, what was the other game at Blacksburg that was like elite with Cirque? Was that
Yeah,
2015?
so I was getting
15.
ready to just ask. You said you played at Blacksburg 3 times, and a lot of people just getting to play there once is a huge accomplishment, let alone get a win. But you guys got 2 wins up
Mhm.
there in your time. I was there for the first one, actually, the Cirque overtime game.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about environment? The overtime in Lane Stadium is to this day one of the greatest places I've ever stepped foot in. I mean,
Yeah.
just you think the first 4 quarters are crazy. You give them a little free football, and those people lose their minds. And then you guys going up there and absolutely putting belt to ass. That stuff, like
Yeah.
Virginia Tech usually didn't have that happen. They
No.
wouldn't lose to an ACC team twice in the same decade at home. Like that
Mhm.
was on the books. But really cool that you got to be a part of 2 wins up there for sure.
Yeah, that was awesome. That overtime game was awesome. And even I mean, we went to the bowl game and did overtime there too. So that was
Yeah.
two really cool overtime wins. And luckily we came out on the right side of both. But yeah, man, Blacksburg that's one that I tell people because I always ask, what was my favorite place to play? I do say Blacksburg because, getting a chance to, freshman year really not expect to go into the game at all. The next year, I think it was just a really sloppy, rainy, or the next time we went there, a really sloppy, rainy game that DJ was playing, and didn't end up going into that one. And then yeah, to finish it off there on that Friday night, it was a cool experience. So one I'll definitely have forever.
I always enjoy going back and looking at like the box scores from older games because you're like, oh wait, that guy was there at that time. Oh, that's right, they had this guy. Your
Hmm.
receiving room, like the dudes who you were throwing passes to in the 2019 VT game, we had some like Duke all-timers in there. I mean, Mateo Durant, yeah, I think he's like the all-time rusher in Duke history. I may be wrong on that.
Could
Don't
be.
quote me
Yeah,
on
I'm not
that.
sure. Mhm.
Noah Gray, Deion Jackson, Jake Bobo, and a
Yep.
very young Jalen Calhoun,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
so funny because like Calhoun and Pankel are like to me like the two guys that kind of connected like your era to like I mean, well, Calhoun wasn't here for Manny Diaz, but like right, back to back. Like those two guys to me like kind of connect those two like your era to like the modern era at Duke. Um, so trippy. But like speaking of receiving, I don't know if you know this. Duke is low key wide receiver you because if you go look at like the ACC all-time reception leaders, 4 or 5 of the top 10 guys are Duke guys.
I could believe it. I mean, we've had some good ones over the years I know it started kind of with Connor Vernon, Jameson
Yeah,
Crowder,
yeah.
TJ might be up there. I know he had a
Hmm.
really successful career. And I mean, obviously they're very talented guys and really the offense accentuated them really well. And also, I think maybe it has something to do with guys staying a little bit longer, 4 or 5 years as opposed to, maybe some of the other schools 3 or 4. But yeah, those guys were super talented. Definitely, Connor kind of shifted under Coach Cutcliffe into Duke being contender every year in the ACC.
Yeah.
Jameson obviously was probably, he's probably on that top, spot, at least in my eye of Duke receivers. And then TJ came in, hit the ground running his freshman year too. So we've definitely been fortunate to have a lot of great receivers come through Duke.
Yeah. So the number four of those four guys who are in the top 10 all-time ACC reception leaders, uh, some people might not realize this is Jalen Calhoun.
Oh wow, okay.
Calhoun is like tied for fifth, like
Okay.
all-time ACC reception leaders, which is crazy.
Go
He
Jay.
caught so many check down passes those years, his first 2 years, man. When
I was gonna say he
Case
definitely.
Rice and like Gunnar Holmberg were flinging in the rock, he was. I mean, that boy was racking them up.
I'm sure. Even my year, I only had the 1 year with him. We definitely used him in the slot a lot. He caught a lot of bubbles, but he
Oh yeah,
threw a couple
great
of deep
screen
balls too.
runner. He
Yeah.
ran clean screens. He wouldn't get too far up ahead of the blocks. Because a lot of times you got receivers out there that kind of try to rush the screens. It seems like, and then a corner jumps it. Next thing you know, they're standing in the other end zone. He
Mhm.
always seemed to do really well at that in his time at Duke.
Yeah, for
It,
sure.
I think my all-time last thing on Calhoun, my all-time favorite Calhoun play, and you've probably seen it, 2023 against NC State. Like he hits his route, he does like this curl, like a hook route. Like he
Stop
runs
and
out,
go.
stutter steps, turns around, burns the receiver, and then takes off downfield and is just wide open for like a 70-yard TD pass. Just glorious. And he hits a wolf pack down in Peyton Wilson's face.
Yeah, that's
Amazing.
pretty electric. I mean, that was the kind of things that probably wouldn't have happened in the Cutcliffe era. But yeah, no, I'm glad to see those guys thrive, man. They had so much talent and potential. I mean, for both of them to play as true freshmen was a testament to their talent. And I have a lot of great memories. I mean, Eli, I remember throwing the two deep touchdown passes to him against A&T. Jalen, the ones that kind of come to mind are Middle Tennessee State, where he took that screen pass. And actually, it's funny. The safety who he made miss is Reed Blankenship, plays for the Eagles now. And it's funny, I've got family that are Eagles fans. I was always telling them, I was like, he didn't seem that great to me when we were playing. But I guess maybe, he kept getting better. And, obviously playing in the NFL along better guys probably helps too. But that one, and then really the one is my last game that I played against Miami. We had kind of I think it was like a RPO type thing where he ran an angle route from the slot, probably put the ball in the belly of the back, and then, he saw he had like a linebacker on him. And that's Jalen, man. He's a true 4-4, 4-3 guy. So it threw that angle route to him. He caught it, and we went up, I think, by 2 scores at that point. And that was a great way to kind of send our senior class out because we definitely had some ups and downs that last year, a lot of close games. But yeah, those were kind of the plays that come to mind for those two guys.
So you were kind of speaking on Duke memories and things like that. Some things we were talking to Feemster about, as you guys said, kind of in the same circle, and he had
Yep.
mentioned your name in a few stories and things like that. But we always like to ask some of the guys, favorite, things non-football about Duke, whether it was favorite bar, be it Shooters, Bull McCabe's, Divines, kind of go-to places to go, things like that.
Yeah.
What you enjoyed in your time there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody, if you know Duke even remotely, you know about shooters. So, yeah, definitely had my a good amount of fun there. I think, as we got older, I mean, you still kind of went back around towards the end of your time to shooters, but when you were in that weird period where you weren't a freshman but weren't like nostalgic enough as a senior or something like that, my favorite memories are kind of a lot of the guys. So it was Joe Giles Harris, Ben Humphreys, Daniel Jones, and Austin Parker all had a house off Ninth Street, I think, Ninth Street. And so it was like a
What a
little
group.
duplex. Yeah, nice squad.
What a core.
Yeah, exactly. DJ and Austin were roommates for a good bit of it, and so were Joe and Ben. And so they all kind of moved in together into a house. And that was pretty much, we called it the Goat House, after Blue Mountain State. That would pretty much be where we did all of our pre-games or hangouts and parties and things of that nature. So definitely had a lot of good memories there the last few years at Duke, aside from shooters and whatnot. Yeah, man, that was kind of where we used to kick it. One of my favorite things to do, I mean, when we were just chilling, played a lot of video games, and maybe Theme touched on it or not, but Themester lived with Jordan Hayes,
Oh
and
yeah.
I would definitely end up in their room quite a bit. Good friends with both of those guys to this day, and play video games. Theme, he used to always want to play 2K, and He was not very good at 2K. He'll probably tell you otherwise, but I remember at one point had a streak of like 30 games in a row that I had beaten him. And that was around the time where it was basically illegal to use the Warriors because they had, KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond. And I remember I beat him with the Warriors and not only beat him, but like, beat him by 21 points. So like automatic, game over type thing. So we joke about that to this day. He'll probably say he remembers it differently. And then Jordan used to play a lot of Madden with him, and guys used to hate playing Madden with me just because, one, I've played it forever. And, from the quarterback perspective too, I don't necessarily think about it as I would, when I was playing. But I guess I just naturally kind of know like what plays work and, how to beat the coverages that Madden shows you and whatnot. So guys used to hate playing me. Me and Jordan had a lot of good games back in the day. Another quick Madden story. It was our freshman year. We were in, the summer dorms, not even our full-time housing. And I came the second session. So some guys came a little bit early so they could be there for the entire summer, So I think pretty much everybody aside from really the walk-ons and like maybe me and Austin Parker or something like that came because I wanted to kind of graduate with the rest of my class and everything and, go from that. And I don't really know Daniel all that well yet. He was a pretty quiet guy at first. And I honestly didn't even know that we had like another. I know he was kind of a gray shirt, kind of awaiting the next scholarship that could come available, but I didn't even really know we had like that kind of quarterback caliber also in the class. You figured they'd have like a walk on or two. Um, so, we're just kind of feeling each other out, don't really talk to each other a whole bunch, but, we're all friends. Like to this day, our whole class can kind of get along with everybody. And I don't know him that well. We go up like, oh, you want to play Madden or something like that? And so we're playing, and Daniel is just awful at Madden. Like I'm talking, I think I was like the Dolphins before they got good, like Ryan Tannehill, and like I'm beating him with like Kenny Stills. I think I probably hung like 50 on him, and it was just like not even the fun where you're like, making fun of your friends, like how I would be with Feem and Jordan. It was just like I didn't know whether to talk shit or feel bad for him. So we talk about that to this day. He's still awful at video games, but that was a pretty funny one looking back on how our relationship developed over time, back to those first couple weeks on campus where it was just an awkward Madden game because I was beating him so bad.
Awesome memories, dude. It's funny with DJ, like I remember so vividly. Like I was on a family vacation in Nashville when that draft was happening, and DJ goes in the first round, and we're all just like, Dude, like a Duke player just went in the first round." Like we
Yeah,
couldn't believe it because like
yeah.
before DJ, like our exports were usually like long snappers or like dudes, who kind of go undrafted and spend some time on practice squads. But like, having a Duke guy go in the first round was like we kind of knew that like we made it. Like and
It
like
was
it was like
awesome.
it was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I think the only other two that I remember, yeah, Jameson or not Jameson, Lakin Tomlinson, who was
Yeah.
like a late first round pick for the Lions that year. I think JC may have been like a third round pick or something like that. But yeah, those guys kind of paved the way. DJ though never had anybody get drafted that high, which was awesome. And a few of us actually were out there for that. So me, Zach Baker, and Aaron Young all drove to Nashville from Durham. So that was honestly underestimated the hell out of that trip. That was like a
Long drive.
8, 9 hour ride. And, of course, we're there with his family, some of his friends from home, and he gets drafted. I think we knew he would be a first rounder, didn't know it would be at 6. We kind of thought, I think the Giants had 3 first rounders that year. So we thought maybe it would be with their second one or something like that. It was gonna kind of pretty much be either them or Washington. And yeah, man, when that happened, it was awesome. Got to go. I think he had like a little section of Jason Aldean's that night. So had us a late night. Baker, he had to stop a few times on the way back home to hit the bathroom, but yeah, yeah, definitely had some scaries there, but it was an awesome night. Really cool. Glad we could be a part of it, and obviously really happy for Daniel.
That's awesome stuff. And I'm also stoked for him getting like a second, a new shot with the Colts. And also you probably know this, he's going back to the 17,
Yeah, I saw that
like in
actually.
college.
He didn't tell me, but I saw like, they had posted, something, saw it on Twitter or X. And yeah, saw the 17 back and it basically is a Duke uniform just with a horseshoe now
Yeah.
instead of the Duke D. So yeah, cool to see him back in the 17. And now he actually never overlapped with Riley, but I know Riley's there now too. So pretty cool for them to be back together. I know they trained together a little bit. They had the same quarterback coach. So yeah, man, I'm excited for him. I hope it's a nice new beginning for him. I'm happy he won't be under the scrutiny of the New York media. I think it's really tough to
Yeah.
be here, especially when there's so many factors that contributed to maybe their performance that, he'd be the first one to tell you that he could have been better, but there were also a lot of things that affected his time there. And so I'm
Oh,
happy he'll get a new shot, good offensive system, a lot of great weapons, good offensive line, something he hasn't really had in a while.
Since
So
Duke. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm excited for him, man. I got to make it out to a game in Indy this year.
Yeah. We've got a friend named Bobby who's just been a diehard Duke football fan since 1991. How he did it for those first 15 years, I don't know. But
Yeah,
he's a
seriously.
huge he's
Dark
a huge
time.
yeah, but he's a diehard Colts fan. And the day they announced that he was going to the Colts, he was like, "Yeah, I'm buying the jersey. I haven't bought a jersey since I was a kid. I'm buying the jersey." Um,
That's a
well,
good
cool,
one.
man. Noah, is there anything else like you wanted to kind of like touch on or get into?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just it's been really cool getting to talk and getting to hear some more stories and stuff of your guys' era and class and everything. Feimster, he's hit the nail on the head. Like he said, he's like Q's as good of a guy as you guys can find, and we appreciate you coming on. It's been a blast. We don't have a ton of viewers. We have about 200 people, but in Duke football terms, that's about like 20,000 for an school. So the people really enjoy it. They love getting the insight. We appreciate you giving them your time as well, for sure.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you guys taking the time on Mother's Day to, accommodate it and everything. But yeah, it's always good to chop it up. I've seen a lot of the Duke guys lately just from weddings, or there was like a Duke alumni event in New York here. So saw a lot of cool guys. Remember AJ Wolf, saw him at an event here. Saw
AJ
Michael Carter,
Wolf.
Victor Dimukeji, who are now both, playing with the Jets and Giants respectively. So cool to see those guys. Just saw Noah Gray. Actually, you guys would like this. I was just at Chris Katrenick's wedding.
Oh, what a bag pull.
Yeah, Chris, man, I love Chris. Chris is a great guy. Love him and his wife. But that was a really cool spot to see a lot of guys I hadn't seen in a while. Like I saw Noah at that wedding, and he and I got to catch up. Got to see really all that tight end room. He was pretty close with the tight end, so it was like him, Jake Marweedy, Mark Birmingham, Pat Lighton, Miles Hudzik. I mean, a lot of guys that I hadn't seen in a while. So it's been cool to see those guys. Always appreciate the time to chop it up and relive the glory days, so to speak.
Well, cool. Hey, good stuff, man. Thanks again. We'll hopefully have this out. Like I love that what I'm planning on doing with this offseason is trying to getting some former player interviews going on and just try to, get some of the newer Duke fans educated and like share some of the greatness of past years with them, like great players, great memories. So you're the first of many, hopefully this summer. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, Quentin, thanks for jumping on, man.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you guys.
All right.